the second he commits to staying on, yes, I'm marking and reinforcing. I'm going to walk you through the steps I take in order to create a more engaged dog that I can have off leash. A lot of the time when people want a recall from the dog, what they're actually asking for is the dog to trust them and have a stronger relationship with them than the outside world. The stronger your relationship is with your dog and the better set up the foundation is, the easier it is to enjoy your dog when out and about. So I'm going to walk you through all the steps that I would take in order to achieve that. So the first step is just building your basic communication system and building markers. So in general, we have two main markers that we use when utilizing positive reinforcement. Most trainers use the word yes and good. Yes is the completion of the task, so that's like, yep, you've done what I've asked you to do, and now you can access reinforcement, in this case food rewards. Second, the second marker is like a good marker. You don't have to use it like good. It doesn't have to be used just the word good. You can also use it in more of like a sentence. So like if I thought the dog was doing well, I would be like, good dog, well done, good dog. I could just talk to the dog essentially to let the dog know it's doing the right thing and reinforcement's on its way. So if you keep doing what I'm asking, you'll eventually get the desired outcome. In this case, food as a reinforcer. So the first step is building that marker word, okay? So I'm just gonna build up or charge the marker, in this case the word yes, and I'm gonna just wait for the dog to pay attention to me, yes, and feed. Yes, feed. I'm being quite generous with the amount of food initially. This just helps charge the marker a little bit quicker. Yes. You can do this with your dog's food bowl, like when you make your dog dinner or breakfast. I would just use that ration of food to do this drill. So you might have to do it 3 or 4 days in a row in order to build up that marker and charge it enough that the dog understands what the word yes means. Yes. Yes. So I'll usually start with the food in my hand like this where the dog can see. And then if he goes for it, I just move it away. Yes, mark for eye contact. Some dogs you might find that's like having it that close is too much for the dog. So you might start like at a distance. Some dogs you might find the further away you have it, the harder it is for the dog. So just adapt to the dog. Yes. 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 So you can see he's kind of preempting which hand the food's going to be in. So all I'll do is I'll vary where the food comes from. So I'll mark yes, and he's already looking for that hand, but I'm going to give him this hand. Yes. So I'm going to vary where the food comes from. So it's going to be some in each hand. Eye contact, yes. Yes. And I'll slowly increase the duration that the dog can give me eye contact. Good, good, yes. Good, yes. Good, good boy, good boy, good boy. Yes, so that's my continuous marker there. So I'm just letting him know he's doing the right thing. Good, good, good boy, good boy, good boy. Yes. And I have that slight pause after the yes marker. I don't just try stuff the food into his mouth straight away. I just have that slight pause for him. So there's no movement from me for a slight second. Yes. And then I move. That'll just stop him from getting preemptive. good, 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 yes. So I'd do that drill from maybe 5 to 10 minutes during feeding time. And so the point of it is we want to build more focus from the dog, so the dog understands if the dog focuses on me, the dog gets access to food, okay, or access to something that the dog sees as reinforcing. And so that core skill of the dog learning to focus and engage is a skill that I can reinforce, or a behavior I can reinforce in multiple different scenarios with multiple different reinforcers. So say the dog waits at the front door and it wants to go out and it gives me nice engagement. I could let the dog through the door for the behavior of engagement, creating more engagement in different settings. I could do it the same at the car door. So if I had the dog waiting at the car and it gave me nice engagement, I could let it out. Say I had a dog that was walking on leash and it's walking along and I want to let it off. I might wait for 10, 15 seconds of engagement before I let the dog go. So that key and core skill of engagement, you want to generalize in multiple different situations and environments in order for the dog to fully understand the skill. And then that becomes the dog's portal to get its needs met, get what it wants. Therefore, you end up with a dog that engages with you a lot more frequently, making your life and your communication with the dog a lot clearer and a lot easier moving forward. You don't have the issue of trying to get the dog's focus because the dog naturally wants to focus on you. So that is the art of the skill of engagement. In this case, the dog's quite engaged. It's not very hard to keep the dog engaged because he's very motivated for the food and we've got a core level of trust. But if I had a dog that was struggling to engage, I might use the dog's name to get its focus. I might use a noise like, or any kind of like something to try get the dog to focus on me. Yes, just to get that engagement started, and then I would phase out or fade away that cue that I have to get the dog to focus on me. Yes. I can increase the distance from the dog. Yes. So move the food a little bit, see where his focus goes. So I move the food. Yes. Food's moving and he's focusing on me, so I can make it a little bit harder for him. Yes. So I'm constantly keeping him guessing. Yes. Yes. So when it comes to this drill, especially at the early stages, short sessions are key. So I would only do 5 minutes at a time, maybe 10 minutes if the dog's really hungry. And I want to finish where the dog still wants to engage with me. I don't want to finish where the dog's completely over it. That's a key trick to training a dog, is you don't actually want to exhaust the dog every time you train it. So if the dog can only focus for 10 minutes, that's the only amount of training I'll do. If the dog wants to focus for 20 minutes and that's comfortable and the dog's still like engaged with me at the end of the session, then the dog can handle 20 minutes. I tend to find the more I work with the dog, the longer sessions I can do with the dog maintaining motivation and maintaining engagement with me for longer periods. And that could be for a number of reasons, which I won't dive into in this video. But I can definitely make a video on that in the future if you guys would like, so let me know in the comments. So once I've built a basic level of engagement, so the skill is kind of started to develop, I want to start doing it in different settings. So previously I was sitting down, I was quite close to the dog, which is going to make it easier for the dog. Now I'm standing up, so you can see the dog's not as focused. Yes, I've got some dogs in the background, I've got sheep up behind the camera. There's things going on that the dog could lose focus. So now that I've got that base level of that marker started to load up, yes, I'm going to start to just get the dog to do basic things for me while it's engaging. So I'm going to still randomly reinforce the dog for engaging. So like if the dog checks out, yes, and checks back in, I'll reinforce the dog. Yes. And then once I've got that engagement back, or the dog's holding decent duration of engagement, so maybe 10, 15 seconds of engagement, I'll start getting the dog to do stuff while it's engaged. And that's how I create chains of behavior within that skill of engagement. Yes. 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 So if the dog checks out and then checks back in like this, so he's checked out, he's distracted, he's going to check back in, yes, I'll mark and reinforce. And I'm going to reinforce those ones, the ones where he checks out and checks back in on his own really heavily. The reason I'm upping the rate and upping the amount of food the dog's getting in that setting is because the dog checked out and lost interest. Yes, and then decided to refocus. So the decision of refocusing is getting heavily reinforced until he starts doing it more frequently or not losing as much focus. Yes. 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 Slowly increasing that duration. He's checked out, checked back in. Yes. So that when he's checking out now, it actually seems to be getting the duration that he's checked out for has decreased slightly. So I'm going to keep monitoring that. Yes. And that gives me a gauge as to whether I'm moving in the right direction and how the dog's responding. I also need to monitor the dog's motivation levels. Yes. Good. Good boy. Good boy. Good boy. Yes. Good. Good boy. Good boy. Good boy. Yes. Good boy. Good. Good. Good boy. Good boy. Good boy. Yes. So what he's learning now that I'm talking to him, so I'm saying, good boy, he's learning that eventually the reinforcer comes. So that's going to build more value in my verbal cues when I encourage him to do something. So if he's, say, recalling and he's coming back a little bit slow and I start heavily praising him, he should pick up and speed up to get back to me because I've charged up that tone and that type of talk with him to mean you're about to get reinforcement, try harder. So he's checked out again. Checked back in, yes. And I'm okay with him doing this a couple of times. Like, I'm not forcing him. That's his first session doing this. He's done pretty well so far. He's checking out a little bit more frequently. And that could be because his motivation's starting to drop. So he's had enough food that he's not that motivated anymore. So I might want to stop soon. That's kind of what he's telling me is, hey, I'm getting close to my threshold of this session. It doesn't mean I can't train him later, but for this session, 5 to 10 minutes seems to be enough. Come on. So you can see now, yes, when I'm moving around, he's kind of checking in with me a little bit more. So I move back, yes. 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 So this little step back helps also build a bit more engagement. Yes. 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 So you can see I'm not actually meaning to teach him a recall per se, but it's naturally kind of happening because he's, yes, coming back towards me on his own. So this little drill of just moving back, reinforcing, yes, he's going to get really comfortable with, and then eventually all I need to do is increase the distance and give it a command, and I've got a recall. Yes. And you will be reinforcing the dog very heavily in the early stages. It's not about using the food to keep the dog focused. It's about reinforcing the behavior enough that the dog enjoys doing the behavior. So when I start reinforcing the dog, because it's new, I want the dog to be like, man, this behavior is like really enjoyable, and it's almost, I'm overdoing it initially. Then as the dog gets better, I thin out the amount of reinforcement that I give the dog. So what I mean is the dog gets less food over a period of time. So at the moment, the dog is getting like a handful of food over a 5-minute period. As the dog does better, that would turn into half a handful over a period. And then it would slowly thin down so I could make the dog work harder for the food. Later on, we bring in some form of like accountability for the dog, whether it's like a leash or a long line. You know, you can use e-collars, vibrate collars, whatever is suitable for the dog and suitable for the scenario would be the right approach. I think 99.9% of owners shouldn't have an e-collar just because of the fact that they're likely to misuse it, and it's such a powerful tool that if misused it makes things worse. So we can get the result without needing the e-collar. So if we can do it with less risk and it's better for the dog, it makes sense to me. So in the next session I'm going to go into, it'll just be the next session that I work with him. So you'll see exactly where I leave off. So I've left off here, I've loaded the yes marker a bit, I've increased the duration he can focus, he's checking in a little bit more frequently, and that's kind of where I'm going to leave it. And so I see that as a great win. The next session I'm going to build off that, and I'm going to increase the amount of focus, increase the amount he's checking in with me, and get a more sustained focus for a longer period of time, and then I'm going to start using that to teach him skills, okay? So I'm going to walk you through this process, take you through the journey, and show you exactly what it looks like so you guys can practice at home. The key with this is you don't want to jump too quick. Like, people get impatient. It's hard when you haven't done it a lot. So like I've trained, 5,000 dogs. So when I know what the next step is, when it's your first dog that you've trained, it's really hard to see like the light at the end of the tunnel, you're stuck in what's the next step, when do I move on? There's so many questions, so it is quite daunting. But just if you follow this and you just keep the session short, and if things aren't going well, you just stop, that is the best approach to training. Obviously, the more skilled you get, the better the dog's going to respond, and you can just keep practicing at that. But getting frustrated or pushing the dog too hard ends up just becoming detrimental to your training anyway. So be present with the dog, be patient with the training, and don't expect too much too soon because you and the dog are learning. Yes.